Today I'm going to be talking to you about the power of release, letting go, trust and surrender, and what it is that we need to let go of, why we need to let go of it and surrender, and how we do it. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. If you're new to my channel, I'm Natalie, and this is As the Pennies Drop, a coaching channel. And I just love sharing all my coaching knowledge with you all, because I really hope you get some value out of it, or a lot of value out of it, quite frankly. Yeah, if you like this video or like this channel, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon, where I will notify you of when I'm posting, which is generally every Sunday, Wednesday and Friday. So I've got quite a few notes today that I'm going to be referring to, because this message, I find, it's really, really empowering. I just want to make sure that it comes out in the right order. Okay, so I'm going to start with a quote from Michael Stone. And Michael said, "Our deepest longing and our greatest fear is to simply be without creating a need to be." Our deepest longing and our greatest fear is to simply be without creating a need to be. And he's talking there about just releasing our stories that we tell ourselves every single day, and we don't even realize that we're doing it. So I remember years ago being asked by this lady that I didn't know, and she came up to me. I was at a wedding, and she said, "So who are you?" I was like, "Well, I'm Natalie, and I teach exercise classes, and I work for this company, and I do this and this and this." And she was like, no, I don't want to know what you do. Tell me, who are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know how I can answer that." And I couldn't answer it. And the closest that I can actually get to being able to answer that today is, I'm Natalie. I am living an experience within this human body. So I'm Natalie, living a human experience in this body. I'm Natalie, living a human experience in this body. That's the closest that I can possibly think of giving somebody if they said to me, "Who are you?" That's it. I don't know how to expand on that, but that's fine for now, because at least I've got something. And actually, that for me is true. So what we tend to do as human beings is we tend to do the automatic. Yeah, I'm Natalie, and I do this, and this. And we're attaching these stories of what we do or what we think as our identity, and we make it our identity. People would say, oh, that's Natalie Dance, she's an exercise instructor. Oh, that's Natalie Dance, the exercise instructor. And it's not who I am, it's what I do. But that identity gives us some purpose. It makes us feel like we have a purpose. So coming back to the quote from Michael Stone, our deepest longing and our greatest fear is to simply be without creating a need to be. So actually, can we just be without having a need to be? When I stopped teaching exercise classes, I found it really, really hard. Initially, I was like, I'm free, I've got my time back. Yeah, it was great. I felt like I could breathe again. But then shortly afterwards, I was like, oh, who am I now? I don't know who I am. I was always Natalie, the fitness instructor, and I felt so proud of that. And then I was like, oh, I don't know who I am now. So when we do actually, kind of let go of these stories or change the trajectory of our life in one way or another, it can be freeing, but also can be a bit scary too. So it's just acknowledging that. The thing about letting go of our stories is because they don't define us. Like I said, me being an exercise instructor doesn't define me. It's just something that I do. And when we are actually holding on to these stories, we're creating a reality based on these stories that we continually tell in ourselves. And that reality literally shapes our world. So release is the ability to trust, to surrender, to let go. So when we're able to trust in our decisions, we're able to trust in, so for example, I trusted myself to stop teaching exercise classes. I surrendered that story. I was able to let go. And I did that bit by bit. Sometimes it does take a bit of the story, chunks of the story at a time. I did that bit by reducing my classes time after time. But what I did was eventually released that story. I released that identity from me. It was longer no part of me. Therefore, it was never me. So when we learned to trust ourselves and others and the experiences, we end up being able to show up with faith in our convictions that we're doing the right thing for us. And the more faith we have, the more freedom will be achieved. So with the art of surrender and trust, we're literally releasing and letting go and creating space for calmness, for peace, for freedom, for our bodies to be able to move fluidly with our mind and physically. We're able to let go. We're just able to let go. So with trust, you have surrender. So with trust and surrender, you create stability, you create safety, you create peace and freedom and calmness. And this is what we need to do to release our stories. We need to trust, and step by step we surrender. Surrender and create stability and security, which creates peace, freedom, and calmness. Now, as I've already said, our stories create our reality. So whatever we're telling ourselves is creating the reality around us and our perception of the world. And what I'm going to share with you, again, I've just given you an example of me teaching exercise classes, but I have, there's a girl that I used to know who was lazy. And she would define herself physically. She would audibly say, I'm lazy. She would say she was lazy. Now, we worked out that the laziness came from her childhood because her dad and her mum used to call her lazy, or her dad more than the mum. But she continued this story. So her reality was, you know, you look back at her life, lazy, you know, but she defined herself that, so she created the reality of that. When I was in the corporate world, my last corporate job, I felt like I had a sense of that I didn't belong. I didn't belong there. I felt like square peg round hole. So I created a story that I didn't belong. So it showed up that I didn't belong. And the more it showed up I didn't belong, the more my story grew and grew and grew. So I then identified myself as somebody in that company that didn't belong. I didn't belong, and I had loads of examples of me feeling like I didn't fit in. But it's just a story, a thought that's turned into a story, that's turned into a pattern of belief. And I've had that pattern of feeling like I didn't belong since my childhood, because that's how I felt growing up, because I wasn't allowed to be me. So when I walked away from that corporate world, I was able to breathe again. I was able to feel free. I was able to let go of that story. And yes, I was scared at the same time, but I was able to let go of that story. That, you know, I didn't have to keep telling myself, I don't belong, I don't belong. I could now change that story by releasing that story, creating a new story. You know, I always have a sense of belonging. I always feel like I belong. I'm always made to feel welcome. So they're just some examples of when we attach a story to our identity, we're literally creating a world and a reality that reflects that back at us. But those stories are not us. It's just a thought that's turned into a story, that's turned into a pattern of belief. Or it could be a career, like me being an exercise instructor. I attached that as an identity to me. And when I let go of that, I felt like I'd lost a part of me, but I hadn't, because it was never me in the first place. It was just something that I did. So our stories do create our realities. So again, my stories were, you know, I had stories of not belonging. I've had stories of not being fitting in. I've had stories that it's really hard and painful to be in a loving relationship, that I've felt like an outsider. And I've had those stories actually all my life. And I have to work on those every single day. So all of these stories are just stories, and we can release them because we are not attached to them. As I said, they're not us. It's just a thought that's turned into a story. So we can, with conviction, because we know it isn't us, we can with conviction let go of that story that we continually tell ourselves. Step by step, we can trust, we can surrender that story to create trust in ourselves and trust in people and trust in other experiences. You know, I did a video recently on the beginner's mind. You know, we can be more open to trialing new things. And yeah, so releasing, the power of releasing creates freedom, peace, stability, security, with a knowing that life continually transforms. So it's being adaptable as well, knowing that things will change. And that can be quite scary, but that's again a story. So that is the power of releasing. So like I said, you can do this by, for example, creating new relationships, changing a career. You can release these old stories by flipping around flipping the negative to a positive. If it's a negative story that you've got about yourself, you know, I have a sense of not belonging. I always belong. I always feel like I'm made to feel welcome. I am welcomed. Yeah, that type of thing. So we can change those beliefs, those thought patterns, either by letting the story go or creating a new story, but knowing that that story is still detached from who we actually are. And then finally, it's giving yourself time to release one story at a time. It can be quite overwhelming if you've got quite a lot of stories that you need to release. So it's doing it one story at a time. So the power of release. So creating freedom to be, and going back to Michael Stone's quote, our deepest longing and our greatest fear is to simply be without creating a need to be. So can we simply be without creating a need to be? Can we let go of those stories that we've chosen to define us, that we've chosen to create a reality around, because our thoughts create? So we now know what release is. It's trust and surrender, how to release, and why we need to release. So releasing creates freedom, peace, calmness. It creates a detachment from the identity that we've tagged onto to us, that is not us. Yeah, the power of release. If you have any comments on that at all, please feel free to get in touch. It'd be really great to hear what your stories are and how you've been able to release them, or if you're struggling to release your stories. And if you obviously need any coaching as well with regards to releasing these stories and these thoughts, if repetitive things are showing up in your life that you don't like, you know, it's all a story that we've created that we can let go of when we trust and surrender. And we can create peace and freedom in our lives to flow easy and effortlessly through movement and through our mind thoughts. There we go. That's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed that. And again, as always, I really hope you got value out of that. And I will be back on Friday. See you.